Next week, a hearing starts at the Human Rights Tribunal in Ottawa. The complaint against the federal government deals with how it funds First Nations child welfare programs across the country. British Columbia's Minister of Child and Family Development isn't waiting to see what happens at the tribunal. She, along with the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs, wrote a sternly worded letter to INAC Minister Chuck Strahl. Mary Pollack joins us from her constituency office in Langley, British Columbia.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, what did you state in your letter to the Minister, Chuck Strahl?
Well, we expressed our concern about the funding mechanism for First Nations children on reserve, and that is conducted under directive called 20-1, and essentially it means that we're unable to receive funding for those services unless we take a child into care, and we think that's really the wrong way to go about things.
How bad is the situation in British Columbia that you felt you had to write this letter?
Well, we see currently about 54% of our children in the care of government are Aboriginal, and that's when our Aboriginal population is only about 8%. So for us, this is a huge issue, and it's one of the #1 priorities for our Ministry of Children and Family Development.
Have you received a reply yet from Minister Strahl's office?
Well, unfortunately, Minister Strahl is not able to meet with us in the near future. We are thankful that they've reached agreement with provinces like Prince Edward Island and Saskatchewan, but we do think that with the work that was done by First Nations Aboriginal agencies, by the ministry and by INAC, that there really is an agreement there to be had, that it's something that we could put into place with great success. But at the same time, we recognize this is something that the federal government needs to move forward with in a comprehensive way.
Now, talking about an agreement, British Columbia apparently has come up with a plan to do something about this inequity in First Nations child welfare funding. How did the federal government respond to this plan?
Well, the plan was developed not only with First Nations agencies, but also with Indian Northern Affairs Canada. So there's already buy-in with respect to the makeup of the plan. What needs to happen, though, of course, is for the funding to follow, and that's something that we are going to continue to urge the federal government to come behind and support.
Do you think in this age of restraint that any funding could be forthcoming anytime soon?
Well, it's difficult to say, and because of that, in British Columbia, we've decided that we're not going to wait for that. We've taken a proactive approach. We have now about 90 different nation-to-nation discussions going on, which enable us to work with individual First Nations and sometimes groups of them to allow them to develop their own Indigenous approaches and to begin that work on providing prevention and support for children on reserve. We've had some great success with Treaty 8 First Nations in the Stikine, the Ktunaxa, Chehalis. So there's work that's going on in British Columbia in spite of this. Certainly we'd be able to do much more if we had the federal government in partnership with us on that.
Of course, there's a complaint against the federal government at the Human Rights Tribunal, which deals with this very subject matter, this inequality between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal agencies. How will you be following this case?
Well, we have already written with respect to our concerns about 20-1 and those that relate to the tribunal case. We wanted to point out very, very clearly that from our perspective in British Columbia, we really do believe that there are inequities that are staggering between the funding, especially for children off reserve versus children on reserve. And it's something that contributes, unfortunately, to the number of Aboriginal children in government care, and it unfortunately contributes to the further breakdown of Aboriginal communities. So both of those trends are things we want to reverse, and we've made our voices heard back east as this continues.
Okay, Minister Pollack, I want to again thank you for your thoughts on this subject, and thank you again for speaking to us.
You're very welcome.